Hi! Welcome to part 3, my discussion of The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I read it, and it's now one of my new favorite books. And I keep saying that like I love the series, even though I've only read this first book in the series. If you haven't watched part 2, watch part 2! And watch part 1 as well. And this is spoilery information. Part 1 was non-spoilery information and just general thoughts on the book, and yeah. So, I think this is going to be another long video, so like strap in. And my feet are kind of falling asleep because I'm just like recording these one right after the other, so if I like am moving around a lot, that's kind of what's happening, is that I'm trying to make my feet not fall asleep. And again, I have my Goodreads review like right behind the camera, so if it looks like I'm reading, it's because I write my Goodreads reviews the way that I would speak, so I'm using it as a guide. Is that all I have to say? Hopefully I don't have to do a part 4, but if you're really into the Raven Boys or the Raven Cycle, then hopefully you don't mind the long discussion. Yes. So, this video is going to be, I've been talking about the characters. That's mostly what I was talking about in part 2. I've been using the characters like as a sort of guide to talk about them, but then also go into certain plot points and talk about the plot. I talked more about the writing in part 1, again, like sort of non-spoilery things in part 1, which I will link in the description, as well as my Goodreads review. Yeah. So this part is going to be talking about the characters who are the psychics, and then anybody else who I didn't mention. And then at the end, hopefully, I can fit in just random other things that I added to the end of my review as I was going through my book, just pointing out some things that I had written or marked, because I annotate my books, and I annotated this so much. So, the psychic characters. I love the psychics, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know them more and just like getting to know like the magic of this series. So first, Mora, Blue's mother. I love her relationship with Blue. She's one of the few mother characters who I feel like we actually like get to know, and from like her, I mean, I think obviously she's important in the series, but like I feel like I have a good idea of who she is, especially for her first book, and it's come from her, and it's like, I don't know if that makes sense. So like, of course she's going to be important in the series, and towards the end of the book I sort of realized that even more, like how much more she's really going to be a part of the series, her and the other psychic characters, whereas I sort of beforehand thought that it really would focus on Blue and the Raven Boys, and I'm sure it does, but they're just all connected, and they're all important. So I'm glad that the psychic characters, although they may seem a bit like supporting characters right now, I'm thinking by the end of the series they're all going to be pretty full-fledged characters. Some I kind of don't have a full picture of yet. And Mora, well, all of them I don't think I have a full picture of yet. And Mora I just think it's that like protective side of her, because she wants to protect Blue, and I think she has a lot of secrets that we're going to be learning about. I'm using the term we again, because this is an us thing apparently. But I was saying that I like that we're getting to know her and it's coming from her. So like, just a clarification, sort of another example is Jocelyn from the Mortal Instruments series, so Clary's mom. Like in City of Bones, the first book, sorry if you haven't read City of Bones, or this is a good example though, because even though Jocelyn is like kidnapped and she's not really present in the first book, we get to know her a bit, but it's because stories are being told to Clary, and I don't mind getting to know characters like that, but I would much rather interpret the character from what they're saying and the actions that they're doing in the book. And that's how we're getting to know the characters of the Raven Boys. But like specifically for mom characters, it's usually just like what you're told about the mom, you know? Or like parent characters. So a lot of what we find out about Mora is like from her interactions with the other characters, and specifically like Blue, of course, because they probably have like the most time together in terms of who Mora is with the most in the book. Yeah, so I can tell that she's hiding many secrets, and I want to know more that she knows, and I also want to know, like, I want to know how powerful she is, like, how deep her powers run, and yeah, because I think of her, I'm sort of going to be talking about all the psychics again, like, after I talk about all of them, so, yeah, hold off on what I was about to say, I guess. So next I have Persephone. Also, I have to, like, apologize. I feel like I'm saying a lot and so a lot. It's probably true. But moving on to Persephone. I love Persephone. I think of her as a mix of, like, Luna Lovegood, who I actually have, like, a Funko Pop of right next to me. I have the... What is this? Like, the Comic-Con 2017 exclusive. Why am I showing you this? Anyway, I think of Persephone as a mix of Luna Lovegood and Professor Trelawney from the Harry Potter series, which, like, automatically gives you, like, because that's the way that I think of Persephone, it's so easy for me to have an idea of the kind of character that she is, even though, like, I know that's sort of me basing her on other characters that already exist. But it makes me feel like I have a fuller image of her than what we actually have in the book. Like, I don't actually have that much written about Persephone. I have that I think of her as a mix between Luna and Professor Trelawney, except with Luna's hair, but down to her ankles. And she definitely seems like the most sort of out of this world character, and like in another. I like that she's like really quiet, and suddenly she's just there, and you're like, when did you get here? And honestly, I just wonder what she's thinking most of the time, and in her idle time. Like, what does she do? I want to know what all the characters, all the psychics are doing in their idle time, what they're thinking. I just want to know everything about everyone. Yes. So, sort of speaking of that, Kala. Kala's my favorite. Is she my favorite character? I don't know. Ronan or Kala? I don't know. Ronan's my favorite Raven Boy character, like Raven Boy, and then Kala's my favorite, like, psychic character. So, Kala, I think of as, like, one of the most interesting characters, which is probably why she's a favorite, but also, I like how blunt she is, and I just think that, like, other people may think of her as rude, but I think she's, like, truthful and reasonable, and I think we have a similar way of looking at things, which may be, I realize, maybe me just, like, projecting myself onto her, and this could all be reasoning for why I think, like, why she's my favorite character, but we're gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, I specifically want to know more about her power of psychometry. Is that how you say it? Psychometry? Psychometry? No, that sounds wrong. Psychometry. That's what I'm gonna say. I did not look up how to say it correctly. For sure, at least. Like, what is the extent of that power? Like, if she just, like, touches a book, does she just automatically, like, have all this information about it? Or is it just, like, one thing? Or does she have to, like, activate it? Or does it happen whenever she touches anything? I don't know. I want to know the rules of the magic, like, in the whole series anyway, but specifically, of course, with her having that special ability that no one else has, or that none of the other psychics in the house have, I want to know more about that. And I think that Kala is, like, savage and funny. I think that has to do with, like, her bluntness. Yeah, I think that she's blunt. But specifically on page 177 of this, like, hardback edition that I have, US edition. I don't know if there's a difference between the US and UK editions of the hardbacks. I know that they're a little different in the with the paperbacks. But anyway, on page 177, I wrote that she was, like, savage and funny, and I thought that she was funny on that page. Savage is not really a word I use all that much, but whatever. It is what it is. And I'll mention Kala again, but now we're moving on to Neve. I have lots of questions about Neve. So, what is Neve's endgame here? Like, I'm very suspicious of Neve Neve. I have a lot, like, this is where my thoughts I could just be, like, completely reading into it way too much and, like, interpreting her in a different way, and you might be watching like, wow, she's really going off here, but it's just the way it is. Oh my god, my eye is really bothering me, so if I'm, like, itching my eye a lot, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, so what is Neve's endgame here? I don't know, but I feel like she's on her own side, like, as much... Like, I can't tell how much what she wants, because I do think that she has goals of her own, but I can't tell how much that aligns with the things that, like, the good guys of the book series, are, like, how much their goals align. And so I also want to know how much of what she is doing could be considered dark magic, and if any of that is, like, out of her league, like, how powerful is she really, and how powerful does she just, like, want to be? Is she, like, you know, dabbling into things that she shouldn't be, and that are, oh my god, like, what if she, like, dies? I literally just thought of this now, like, what if she's, like, trying to do something that's, you know, out of her league, as I had said before, and then she just, like, dies because it's too much. I don't want her to die. So... yeah, but I think that she has goals of her own interest, like unlocking more power and being successful and having money, but I'm hoping that she's, like, genuinely trying to help Mora find Blue's father. I'm just... I just feel like she has goals of her own, but maybe, I don't know, maybe she really is just there to help Mora find Blue's father. I just find her questionable, and... I want to find out a lot about all the characters, really, but Neve specifically, because is this, like, super far-fetched, or am I onto something? Don't tell me, though. Yeah, so now, Orla and Declan. Did I call Declan Duncan earlier in part 2? I'm kind of, like, replaying it in my head, and I might have called him Duncan. Okay, well... I kind of grouped them together because I think they're the two characters that we know the least about, but, like, we've seen them in person. But I think that they're characters we're going to get to know a lot better later on, which I can already say is true about the Dream Thieves, oh my god. Which I can already say is true, with Declan, since I've started the Dream Thieves. But Orla sort of seems, like, preoccupied with other things in this book, specifically her boyfriend, and, like, Is that going to come up later on? Like, her boyfriend? Is there, like, a significance to that? Or is it just, like, she has a boyfriend? Yeah, but she isn't really partaking in a lot of the psychic things in this book. So, that's why I feel like we don't know her as well as the other psychics, or the other psychic characters. Yeah, I just don't, like, have a clear picture of her. And I'm pretty sure she's, like, younger, though, too, because she's Blue's cousin, and I'm just picturing them closer to the same age, whereas, obviously, her aunts, and there are probably other cousins that are older. But I can tell, although we don't see her a lot in, like, psychic, circumstances, I can tell that she's, like, a strong character, and she's very, like, in tune with her abilities. She's the one who, like, has it was her idea to have the landline, like, business telephone number, right? Or is it just that she's always on that line because of her boyfriend? I have to clarify that in some notes somewhere. Find that information in the book again. So then with Declan and Ronan's relationship is, like, complicated. You can obviously tell that, but things seem really vague. So I already know some things now, but there are secrets there and information that we just don't know. This is a we thing again, but I'm learning more in the Dream Thieves. But I have to save that for my discussion of the Dream Thieves when I finish that. And to me, though, Declan is, like, really giving up on Ronan. Like, I'm really glad that Gansey is there for Ronan, but for some reason I'm really upset that Declan is giving up on Ronan. And I just say that it's weird for me because most of the time, if I'm like reading a book or watching a movie, if there's a character that is really looking after another character, but the other one is just like doesn't care, then to me there just has to be a point where you're like, I'm not even gonna try anymore. And like, specifically, hopefully that shows the other person that, well, it was better to have somebody looking after me and trying and paying attention. Does that make sense? But like, at least he has Gansey. But I don't know how that's really gonna help like their brother-brother relationship, like Declan and Ronan. I'm really hoping that they like get back, that they get back together by the end of the series, though. I don't want them to have like a full falling out or anything. Oh my god, what if Declan dies though because of the gray man? Oh my god, no. I don't want, like, even though, like, I don't want anyone to die. There's no one so far that I would want to die. Like, I obviously I wouldn't mind about the gray man, but he's in the Dream Thieves. Oh my god, if you're watching this and you haven't read the Dream Thieves, I'm so sorry that I'm saying things. You're probably like, who's the gray man? But it's fine, because I don't think I've said anything that's really specific. Okay, I have to not get off topic here and stick to what I have written. I think I finished with with Declan and Orla. But I'm going to talk about Orla a little bit more, because now I'm going to talk about the psychics again. So, this is sort of where why like Kala is my favorite, because of this way that I interpret her. So I think that Persephone, Kala, and Orla, of the 5 psychics that we know, I'm pretty sure it's just the 5 of them, like Persephone, Kala, Orla, Neve, and Mora. Like, those are the 5 main characters who are psychics, right? I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. Oh my god, that would suck. Oh man. But anyway, I think of the 5 psychics we know, those are the 3, Persephone, Kala, and Orla, that they, like, live the most, like, psychic life, a mostly psychic life. So I think that they're the most connected to their abilities and powers, as well as it, like, very much rules their lives, but not necessarily, like, in a bad way, except for maybe Kala, because she has the psychometry ability, and I think that that gives her a greater understanding of, like, things overall, but also of things specifically and of people. I think that she knows a lot, and there's probably a bunch of things that she's just, like, keeping inside. And I just wonder how much information that she's been able to access because of this ability. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why she's, like, so blunt all the time. Like, when Ronan, when they're all, when the Raven Boys come to Blue's house for the psychic reading, but they don't know that it's Blue's house, obviously. And then Ronan's like, well, I need more proof that you guys are, like, legitimate. And then Kala, like, touches his back, and, well, it just happens to be his back or shoulder or something like that. Anyway, she touches him, and then she says, like, you know what killed your father, you know his secret, or something like that. Something along the lines of that. And then he, like, I just feel like everything went really still, and then he just barges out, and then everyone's like, why did you do that, Kala? Like, I was like, why are they mad at her? This is why I think that I'm, like, Kala's my favorite, but also, like, I relate to her the most. That's usually how it is for me. My favorite characters of things are usually ones that I, like, relate to the most. Unless someone just happens to be, like, really intriguing to me, and I'm, like, really fascinated with them. But that also happens to be Kala in this instance. But yeah, I just didn't understand why people were, like, angry at her, like, that she, like, told the truth. Like, that's what it was. And that's what he asked for, like, something specific. But, like, how much other information did she, like, get from that touch? I just wonder. And, like, did she have to... I just want to know more about her ability. I feel like I'm yelling. I feel like that would really affect the way that she... just, like, the actions that she takes and the way that she thinks about things, because she could have so much more information than people know, and could be looking at things from multiple perspectives, and have, like, vital information that like, maybe she doesn't even know is vital. Oh, I don't know. I'm completely going off on this. But, yeah, okay. So I think that the three of them, Persephone, Kala, and Orla, are the psychics that, like, mostly live, like, a psychic life. And then Mora and Neve, that leaves them sort of, like, out of it. But I think that's because I'm sort of isolating them two because I think they're more aware of, like, the real world. Like, Mora has Blue to take care of, and I also think of her as, like, the head of their business, and the home, so that kind of, you know, she's paying more attention to sort of, like, bills that have to be paid, and their income, and things like that, whereas I just think that other people in the house are just sort of there and doing business, but not necessarily, I mean, they don't really have to worry about other expenses because they all live in this house. And then I think that Neve, again, this is like my interpretation. I may be wrong on this. I may be over-interpreting things here. But I think that Neve is overly aware of the real world, specifically because she was on the TV. Like, she's known as, like, this more famous TV psychic. And so I think that she thinks she needs the recognition of, like, masses of non-magic people to succeed, and that I think that she wants to be, like, really powerful and be recognized as, like, a powerful psychic. And I don't know, this is sort of like, this might explain, like, the way that I was, what am I saying? This may be why I was thinking certain things about her when I was talking about her just on her own, instead of less, like, with me talking about the way that their lives are, I guess, and the way that they interact with the world. Or even if that interaction is kind of a lack of interaction. I think it sort of causes her to, like, rely on others instead of, like, usually it's clients that are relying on the psychics, but she sees so much of this reliability on the people who watch her show and the people who come to her, and without them, she's, like, nothing, and she also has to, like, prove that she's, like, a true psychic and powerful. Like, I don't know, that's just kind of the way that I'm thinking about her. I feel like I'm repeating things a bit. But also, it sort of makes it seem, like, impersonal. Like, she doesn't really care about the clients, and that she doesn't care about anybody else but herself. Which, again, I'm, like, hoping I'm wrong about. It'd be interesting. Surely I think that my hypotheses with the way that I'm interpreting the characters are interesting, but, I do hope I'm wrong about Neve, and that she's not just, like, I want her to be there for the right intentions. Or even if at first she wasn't there for the right intentions, that in the end, she's, like, she doesn't need to worry about that stuff anymore, I guess. And then just some characters that we don't really see that much. So I'm done talking about the psychic characters. I'm assuming Ashley, I think I said this in part 2, I'm assuming Ashley's not going to be much of a character anymore, but, like, maybe we'll see her again, we'll see. I obviously don't like Adam's father, and I don't really like his mom either. And I don't really have an opinion on Gansey's family. I hope we get to know I don't know. I actually wouldn't mind if we didn't get to know Helen more, only because there's already so many characters that I'm way more intrigued by. So honestly, I wouldn't really mind if Helen isn't a huge part of the series. And then I'm also wondering if we are going to meet Mallory in person, or if he's just going to be, like, a character that we know as, like, an over-the-phone sort of character. And that's it for characters, except for Butternut, Artemis, Blue's father. Obviously, I'm intrigued by him. Like, what's up with him? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. So then I think that that's almost everything. So yeah, so now this is just the part of my review where I go through the book, that, like, when I'm writing my review. This is when I go through the book and mention anything else that I missed or want to talk about, as long as I have characters to write about these things in the review, which I ran out of characters for this review, so that shows you also why this is split up into 3 parts. So, yeah. This is what I was trying to say earlier. Was it earlier? Or was it yeah, it was earlier. But something I definitely like about the book and the writing is that not everything is spelled out. Like, I know some things are going to be clarified later on, or maybe some things are foreshadowing. So, for instance, Ronan's suicide attempt and, like, finding his father's body. It's not like there are pages dedicated to thoroughly explaining what happened. It's just that those events are part of the characters, the character's history, and, like, part of who they are. So, even though those are things that are going to be, like, touched on later on, I'm just glad that it wasn't, like, thoroughly explained right in that sort of introduction of that event or of that character. So that's what I meant by, like, not everything is spelled out. And then also, speaking of suicide attempt, or just suicide, something I didn't like, one of the only things I didn't like about the book is on page 56, it's during Barrington's first chapter. The secretary at the school says, "Man, sometimes these entitled little bastards make me want to slit my wrists." And I don't know, I don't know the inflection of her voice. I don't know how she was saying that. And I know that that's a thing that people say, that they're like, "Oh yeah, I feel like," they, like, casually and sort of jokingly say something about killing themselves or, like, a way to kill yourself. But I just don't, like, that needs to stop. I don't understand it. So I sort of, like, it's a small problem, but it's definitely something that stood out to me as someone who's aware of mental illness and the way that it's portrayed. Just a sort of side note here, I'm actually really, I gravitate towards stories that include some sort of premise with mental illness, but specifically with depression and or suicide attempts. My favorite book is The Bell Jar, if that gives you a sort of example of it. Anyway, so I have, like, I'm more likely to have a bigger problem with this than other people may, is what I'm sort of clarifying there. But it didn't need to be in there. It could have been taken out and edited and rewritten or whatever. And I also doubt that it's going to come back in any way, so it's not like it's significant that it's written that way. And then on page 70, this is just a fun fact about the way that I was reading it. So on page 70, I bracketed from the paragraph that starts with, "The story of the Lynch family was this," and then there's, like, a colon, and then it continues to describe the story of the Lynch family. But, like, that paragraph to the end of the page, I wrote an annotation in the book, and I put, "Why did I read this as if it's the narration of the Royal Tenenbaums, like, in Alec Baldwin's voice?" Because that's what I did. I, like, read it as if I was watching the Royal Tenenbaums, except it wasn't the Royal Tenenbaums, it was the Nia Lynches. That sounds stupid. I understand that, like, because Royal Tenenbaum is, like, his name, that's what I was doing. Anyway, that's not going to make sense if you haven't seen the Royal Tenenbaums, which you should, I think. It's one of my favorite movies. Also, Adam kept on mentioning that he felt like someone was, like, onto them and someone was following them, and, like, now I'm thinking it's the Gray Man, but I think that it was, like, supposed to be Barrington. Like, we were supposed to think that he was talking about Barrington, but, like, now I'm thinking it's the Gray Man. I'm just thinking, I'm just overthinking. But, like, is there really someone following them? Is the Gray Man following them? And then on page 113, it mentions Kavinsky, and I know now, since I've started the Dream Thieves, that Kavinsky, it seems like he's also going to be, like, a main character. He's come up in a couple of scenes, but I saw his name in later chapters when I was just skimming through to see how many chapters there were in the book, and so he's not well introduced in The Raven Boys, and I don't think I'm going to like him because he seems to, like, hate Ronan, and Ronan's one of my favorites. An example of wording that I really like is on top of page 146, where it says dripped venom, because who thinks of that? Maggie Stiefvater does, and it's not like venom was actually dripping, like it's a metaphor. Yeah, I was impressed by that writing. And then when Gansey was getting his reading done, I think he was meant to get Blue's card, but also meant to get the death card. But like, we already knew that the death card would be significant, even if he didn't get that card. Like, we would have been able to figure that out. Oh, this is what I was talking about with Barrington. On the top of page 176, I wrote that he's too caught up in this Agley and B boys thing. Like, he's graduated and is older now, move on. So top of page 176, that's what I was referencing. I also just have like a lot of questions about Cabe's water, but I'm about to run out of time, and I think that this is like good now. I don't have to keep talking. So also, you can just read my review, which will be linked in the description. So thank you so much for watching. If you watched all 3